You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, the place to learn about new technology and technological advances before they become mainstream. This podcast is sponsored by Ingram Micro's Imagine Next. It's not about the destination. It's about going someplace you never thought possible. Go to imaginenext.ingrammicro.com to find out more. Let's get into it.
Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro. I'm your host, Keri Roberts, and my guests today are Tyler Gustafson, the Business Development Executive with Ingram Micro, and Rich Cooperman, the Director of Sales at Micro Decision Systems. Welcome to the show, Tyler and Rich. We're excited to have you here today.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Keri.
So we're chatting today about utilizing Ingram Micro's flexible financial solutions. And Tyler, Ingram has found that 64% of clients agree that it's easier to make a technology acquisition when a finance payment option is provided. And Ingram is working to help partners maximize their cash flow and allocate their financial resources where they're needed most. What are some of the things Ingram is doing to help support partners and their customers during these challenging times?
Yeah, absolutely, Keri. So we have extended $100 million in additional credit to our channel partners. We've also waived the fees associated with some of our financial programs, including the Direct Express Complete and Preferred Source, which could really be beneficial at a time like this. In my mind, more importantly, we have been helping provide our customers longer payment terms through some of our flexible payment solutions, and that is good for deals up to 60 months.
And Ingram Micro is also providing some unique offerings due to the current events, including options which Ingram calls 90 days same as cash, Baker's Dozen, and Future Funds. I love these fun names. Can you tell us what they are and break down what's included in each?
Yeah, absolutely. And they really, I think, fit really well with what's going on in the world today. So the first option is 90 days, same as cash. And it gives the customer 90 days to decide if they'd like to write a check for the solution or if they would prefer to roll into a longer term finance agreement. It can really be good in these uncertain times. The drawback with it a little bit is that in order to facilitate the program, the reseller does have to take a 5% discount on the funding. So instead of funding the full 100%, we're funding 95%. With the future funds, it is a bit similar, but how it would work is the customer would make 6 interest-only payments, and then at the end of the 6 months, they have the option to decide, do they want to roll into a 36 or 60-month type of a finance agreement, or would they prefer to pay it off at that time? And in this case, it's the same type of flexibility, but we are able to fund out at 100%. The Baker's Dozen is really the simplest one of all, and we all know Baker's Dozen means 13. All we're going to do is divide the funding amount by 12, and the customer is going to make 13 payments at that amount, and at the end of which they'll own the equipment. So a lot simpler, and all three really do provide kind of some unique flexibility and can lead to good conversations with your customers.
So once a partner has engaged with Ingram, there is an easy 4-step process to get things started. Can you share with us what that is?
Yeah, it is really simple. So the first thing that we're going to need to get the process started is a copy of your end user facing quote. And we're going to use that quote. We'll be able to get you the pricing and the numbers that you could quote to your customer. We will then do a credit check on the end user. This is something, we don't need their permission for, and typically is something we're able to do in an hour or less. And once we have the credit approval, then we'll send you the paperwork for the customer to sign, get their signatures, and then we'll go about funding you and get you paid, hopefully net zero, and speed up that cash flow even when compared to a cash sale.
Which is great. And now, Rich, we have you on here today with us because you're a customer of Ingram Micro's and you utilize some of the solutions that Tyler just mentioned. Can you share with us your experience in managing a business and how the finance options that Ingram has are helping your organization and how they've compared to maybe other solutions you've tried before?
Thanks very much. So we've been doing this for a long time as a reseller of hardware and software and a solutions provider to end users, and Ingram Micro is our chosen source for all of those products. And over the decades we've been doing this, we've worked with a great many financing sources, and I have to say without hesitation that Ingram Micro is the absolute best to work with. They streamline this process so incredibly. I'm really at a loss for words. I don't get excited about a lot of this sort of dry stuff, but they're like an extension of our business. They're part of our family. And we've actually taken their general rate structure, built it into some tools that we have here at our shop. And whenever we send out a proposal, we send out estimated financing options, and we sell those very, very, very strong. And I say probably 60 to 70% of our business ends up being financed. And it's a game changer for us. And Ingram Micro, they cannot convey how easy it is. It's a phone call, it's an email, it's done, we're funded, everyone is happy. It's so professional.
Now, I'm curious, how long have you been working with Ingram, Rich, and what kind of drew you to working with them initially?
Well, we've been doing this for several decades, and we go back a long time with Ingram Financial. But in all honesty, we tried some other sources over the years just because the environment changes and the landscape changes. And I'd have to check and see when we sort of came back to Ingram as our go-to first number one source for financing, because we've worked with the other large players. And it's not even a question anymore. I know it sounds like a paid promotion here, but I'm so excited about it. And it's such an important part of our business. And it's so easy to close when the financing option is there. I can go into as much or as little detail as you like about how we do that. But it's standard. We quote, unless we know the client has very specifically said they're not interested in financing or they have some other arrangements, that's a standard part of our proposal process. The Ingram numbers are there, built in. And we even have put together a little internal document to explain the basics of leasing in very simple language, because it's amazing how many large, sophisticated clients don't really understand leasing. And that's a standard part of our pitch. Discussing both dollar buyout as well as fair market value. And I just have to say as an aside that the 90-day same as cash and the other programs that Tyler's crew has put in place in this insane situation has relieved a tremendous amount of the anxiety with our customers who are wondering whether they can make long-term commitments now. There's some brilliant products they have. One of the things that we found to be very interesting with our end users is that they thought they had figured out the best way to handle payment for the equipment they acquire from us. A lot of them think, I don't want to incur extra expenses because there are interest charges surrounding leasing. It's a form of financing. Or I love using my credit cards because I get points and miles and things like that. And to the resellers listening to this, I know we'll all agree that credit card is two of the dirtiest words you can hear. Right? Because the inside cost to process a credit card in a low margin business like IT equipment and software is very, very painful. But we do it because we have to, make it easy for our clients. And that's just the way the world works. But we have a different perspective on that. And we'll have conversations with our end users where we'll talk to them very directly and say, listen, I fully understand you'd like to use your American Express card. And if that's what's best for you, by all means, we're here to make it easy for you. However, I would like you to consider the fact that although the total sum of payments, if you lease, will be greater than the dollar value if you had just made the purchase, there are a tremendous number of tax advantages besides cash flow advantages that leasing offers. Because if you use your credit card, you're going to have to make that payment in something like 25 to 40 days. And if you don't, the interest rates are going to be exorbitantly high. A lot of our clients don't understand that if they take our proposal with leasing on it and present it to the accounting department of their companies or their outside tax advisors, they'll see that tax law is very, very favorable to this kind of capital equipment leasing, and that a tremendous amount of the interest they would otherwise just be paying if it were, say, a bank loan they took out to do this actually gets taken care of by their savings and their business taxes. And it changes for every business. So we're very, very clear about having them discuss this with their tax group, their accountants, whomever they do this with. But U.S. tax code is really very, very much geared towards helping businesses get the equipment they need. So we move a tremendous amount of our clients away from paying by credit cards. And there are other compensation arrangements that Ingram has where resellers can pick up some extra revenue if they do the transaction transaction as a lease. So not only are we are no longer losing the very high gross profit percentage by having the client pay by credit card, but we're actually making more revenue sometimes based on other compensation things that Ingram has in place for their resellers. And the customers, I really can't think of anybody who's regretted. Of course, we only want them to do it when it's appropriate for their business, but I can't think of anyone who's ever regretted moving to a financing business model. And usually once they get started like that, they don't go back. It just becomes an assumption. Corporate clients will say, hey, 5 new employees, we need a quote for 5 new machines. That quote goes out. It's assumed it's going to be leased. The lease payments are on there. We're assuming it's going to be done through Ingram Micro on the back end, and boom, it just happens.
Yeah, that's a great point, Rich. And the other thing as well is I'm sure the clients that you've kind of talked into that leasing option are pretty happy to still have those credit lines open and still have the cash in the business to be able to make payroll in a time like this.
Absolutely. And once this relationship is established, and unfortunately for Ingram, it's so easy for new clients to establish a relationship and to get their credit checked that it's very hard to really sell on the fact that, hey, your line of credit is waiting there. That's a little inside thing between all of us because Ingram is so good at this. It's so easy. But because the customer's needs absolute take total precedence here, if it's something that should not be leased, we just go ahead. We do it as a regular straight purchase transaction. Or it's not uncommon for us to have a complex mix of products, and some of those should be on dollar out leases. Some of those should be on fair market value leases. And we split that up for the client. They just think they're leasing it all. But because we have to have their best interests at the forefront, we split that up into multiple transactions so that at the end of 3 years, some equipment goes back, equipment that should be returned and replaced. And at the end of 3 years, the equipment that they need to really run for 7 or 8 years stays in place. And, it's seamless for them. So we use it, we don't use it, we use it in different ways. It's really like a Swiss Army knife of financing.
Real quick, before we jump straight back into the episode today, we want to tell you about Ingram Micro Financial Solutions and how you can maximize your buying power and get to yes with your customers faster. For the last 9 years, Ingram Micro has been Channel Pro's reader's choice for best financing options. Put the power of our credit and leasing options to work for you. You can easily contact Financial Solutions at ingrammicro.com. All right, let's get back to the show.
We've had a lot of people on the show who not only work for Ingram, but partners and customers like yourself. And one of the things that I have noticed is Ingram is filled with a tremendously great group of people. And I'd love for you to talk about your experience from a people standpoint and how they've kind of treated you as a partner, as a customer, and what that's felt like to your company.
Fantastic. Yep. We go back with Ingram longer than I can even recall. I'd have to look it up. In particular, Tyler's group is very, very special. The entire Ingram family we love. We've become friends. With some of our reps over the years, we've gone to visit them and been invited to weddings. It's that kind of relationship we have as a reseller with Ingram as a supplier, but an extension of our business. But I have to say, our gold standard for how you conduct business is Tyler's group. There isn't a query that is not responded to just lickety-split fast. They know the answers. If they don't know the answers, they say my 3 favorite words in business, which is, I don't know. Rather than people fudging it. And their credit approval process is so quick. Their staff is so friendly and accessible. They fund so quickly. If you took the business out of it, it would be a pleasure just chatting with them about life. But luckily for us, we get to blend the two together.
Yes. No, I love hearing that. Tyler, do you have any response to that and maybe anything else you'd like to add about what we're talking about today?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Rich, we appreciate such kind words and that feedback. That's what we strive for, and glad to hear that we're doing a good job in your case. Can you talk a little bit also about the financing in general in terms of maybe some of the benefits you might see at the end of term on these deals versus if a customer had paid cash or written you a check?
Sure, absolutely. We have built into our entire administrative system a whole subsection that manages our leasing transactions. So we know when all the deals are going to terminate even before our dear friends at Ingram, are notifying anybody or the customer is even aware. And we closely work with the IT departments, or for some of our smaller clients who outsource their technical services. The timing of lease expiration is built into the entire life cycle. So we're going to be talking about, hey, you guys know you've got X, Y, and Z sitting on this particular lease transaction. And we know this is part of your accounting department and half of your marketing group. And we're going to have this leasing arrangement ending in, 120 days. So we have Ingram Micro's leasing division, that whole part of their business that we so lean on in our sales cycle, we have it built into our entire administrative process. So we have systems scheduled to bring up conversations about leases that are going to come to the end of term. If they're fair market value and the equipment is going back, which we love because we've given clients lower monthly payments and helped them stay on top of keeping their equipment current, we're having conversations with their IT departments or even their outsourced IT groups about, hey, this lease is coming to term in about 4 months. This equipment is going to go back. It covers these 6 people in sales and 3/4 of your accounting department, this particular, and network infrastructure stuff. What are the plans and how can we help to make sure there's a smooth transition there to bring in the new equipment to replace the equipment that's going to go back at end of term? And we're doing that proactively. It's a big sales tool for us. We're not waiting for a notification from, the controller at the client saying, hey, I only have 2 more payments left. We're in there before that happens. And we find that keeps the whole process moving. It's a living process where you're in it and you're discussing it and you're taking it apart and you're analyzing what comes next more regularly than if you would have sold something to somebody and they just become a footnote in your accounting system. Oh yeah, 6 years ago, this guy picked up, that bunch of equipment. It's very, very important to us.
Well, I thank you, Rich, for, sharing your experience. We love hearing that. One of the questions we ask all of our guests on this show is, where do you see technology going within the next year? And it can be in a specific area or if you want to talk about it as a whole. And Tyler, I'll start with you with that question.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I'll have to admit that I am not an expert when it comes to the technology. Really, my role is the financing of the equipment you're selling. So I think the trend that I think we're going to see in the next 12 months is more about how that technology is acquired, right? We know that people like to consume things on a monthly payment, and we know that 91% of your customers are expecting a monthly option to acquire that hardware. And that survey was done prior to the COVID situation. So I really think within the next 12 months, that monthly option to your customers is going to be key to keeping your businesses moving forward.
And Rich, what are your thoughts on this?
This may be somewhat contrarian because I know most people would say the world is moving to everything as a service, hardware as a service, infrastructure as a service. And in terms of the other technology partners that we work with, because we're primarily a provider of hardware and software, so we collaborate not only with obviously the end users, but they often have additional providers that help them manage their infrastructure. And that's what people are talking about. And I don't want to be contrarian, but I have to say that with all the uncertainty that's out there, and especially now people complaining about the loads being put on their external networks due to, the COVID disruption and problems with Zoom meetings and other network infrastructure issues outside their office, we're still really focused on letting people control the hardware and software that runs their day-to-day businesses. Because when it comes down to it, a lot of stuff we do every day hasn't changed that much in several hundred years. The products have to be built, the services have to be provided, and you can't outsource everything. So we're seeing people wanting to be able to control their long-term hardware and software assets. They're more cautious. They want to be able to predict going forward that they're not relying on external sources. So I actually see this pandemic environment strengthening people's ability, desire to keep it in-house as much as possible to manage their long-term costs. And financing is a fantastic way to do that. Well,
thank you for sharing both of those opinions. We talked about a lot of things. Obviously, it's really nice to see things written down more specifically. You guys have a lot of great visuals online here. Where can people learn more about what we talked about today, or if they want to connect with either of you to ask questions?
They can reach out to us via email at financialsolutions@ingrammicro.com, or feel free to pick up the phone. We love to talk with our partners as well. Phone number for us is 877-877-0035.
And although we're based in New York, we do service the entire lower 48 states. So you can reach us on the phone at 212-206-8191. This is Rich Cooperman from Micro Decision Systems, since we're listening to this on a podcast. Or you can reach me at rich@microdecisionsystems.com. That's a long one. The moral of that story is don't incorporate before the internet is invented, but that's where we are, and we've been here for many decades and look forward to continue to doing it with you guys. Thank you.
Yes, thank you both so much for sharing your insight, and Rich for being here to kind of share what it's like as a partner as well. We really greatly appreciate having you both on the show, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Keri.
If you like this episode or have a question, you can join the discussion on Twitter at Ingram Tech Soul with the hashtag B2B Tech Talk. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro.
You've been listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, hosted by Keri Roberts. This episode was sponsored by Ingram Micro's Imagine Next. B2B Tech Talk is a joint production with Sweetfish Media and Ingram Micro. Ingram Micro production handled by Laura Burton and Christine Fan. To not miss an episode, subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform.